Hey up viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist and welcome back to Say Being Hunted, episode 626, ladies and gentlemen. Feels like every intro I do now in these kind of episodes, I always fluff it up these days, but that's usually because as of late, this last sort of week or two, what with the new term starting up at work, it's been very, very hectic and all that, and as a result, I've only really been able to record some stuff in evenings when I'm sort of probably quite tired after a day's work of just standing in lecture halls talking or in front of seminar groups wittering on about whatever. And so as a result, my mind is always a bit melted whenever I do these, and as a result, I end up fluffing lines up. Game, can you not suddenly fucking start lagging out when I'm just about to do an episode? Don't know what's causing those weird little lag spikes like that. Maybe stuff's just loading or whatever. Who knows? But yes, I was a bit worried when I was loading in for a second that it was going to do that freeze up on the loading screen thing again, like it did last episode, but fortunately it didn't. Because if it had, I would have been about to say that probably another sign that my computer maybe is just getting a bit old. It's getting a bit old. Time to retire, time to get its pension out and all that. Right, so as you'll probably recognise, technically we are back doing another podcast style episode on the same map. I just thought, I'll keep playing, because I've still got topics of conversation which have sprung to mind since I recorded the previous episode, which I think would make for an interesting conversation. And in particular, I was actually thinking about... Well, there's a couple of things actually I'm thinking about, and I'll sort of try and cover them both off in this episode, because I think they're interesting. But I was thinking recently about video game controversies. You know how sometimes, particularly back in the day, sort of 1990s, 2000s, you always used to have controversies about certain games when they were released because of certain scenes or certain themes that they dealt with. And I'm sure, you lot can sort of name some interesting examples off the top of your heads. I mean, like, for example, you might talk about Mortal Kombat, for instance. If you're one of my American viewers, you may well remember that, when Mortal Kombat games were first coming out, back in the 1990s or whenever, there was obviously controversy over in the States around those because of the levels of violence in them. Things like that. Or, if you wanted to take something much more, not recent, but something a bit more modern, there's obviously, I think it was a Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, for instance, which had, I think it was the infamous airport scene, where technically you play as a terrorist gunning down civilians and all that. And, it's understandable why a scene like that would become controversial, given that I can't remember exactly what year Modern Warfare 2 came out, but I'm pretty sure it was after 9/11, wasn't it? So obviously it would have, generated controversy probably because of the atmosphere of concerns about terrorism and stuff like that. People would have thought it was in bad taste. Not saying I necessarily thought so. I didn't really have an opinion on it at the time. And today I say, well, irrespective of whether it's distasteful, it is just a video game. But no, so I was thinking about video game controversies, and I was thinking about, are there any sort of video games I remember, back from my youth, older video games that is, which generated a bit of controversy here in the UK, for whatever reason. And there was actually one example that I strangely do remember, surprisingly well, even though it was a video game that I never played personally, because it was a video game that I think was only ever available on PlayStation. I don't think it was ever released on PC. So naturally, because I was always a PC gamer, it was a game, like I say, that I never played. Because the thing is, when I was a teenager, I never had any console other than just my computer. I didn't have a PlayStation or an Xbox or anything like that, or a GameCube or whatever. No, I had none of that. I just had a computer. But the thing is, what I do remember... Does anyone remember a PlayStation game from back in the day? I think about 2005 or 6-ish it would have been. A PlayStation game called Resistance: Fall of Man. Does anyone remember that? Does anyone remember what that one was? Because again, 2006, 2005-ish, it would be way over, 10 years old at this point. In fact, it'd probably be over 15 years old. But, in essence, for anyone who doesn't know what Resistance: Fall of Man was, it was a first-person shooter, sci-fi, and it was set, I think, in kind of like an alternate history United Kingdom, so like the 1950s or 1940s or something, and basically it was about an alien invasion of Earth. And what kind of I sort of really remember from back in the day was that there was a big controversy that blew up around it when it came out, because one of the levels apparently in this game is set in a cathedral, and now I don't sort of recall exactly whether this was meant to be the case or not, but apparently there was controversy because the interior of this cathedral basically looked a lot like the real life interior of the Cathedral of Manchester, you know, the big city in sort of northern UK. And I remember there was a big stink that went up around that, and I think I remember it being on national news at the time, because I think you know, the church had made an absolute fuss about it, about what appeared to be a video game replication of the interior of one of their cathedrals, basically being used as a setting in a video game, featuring sort of violent scenes of shootouts and things like that happening within the cathedral. And basically, I seem to recall the church at the time was not particularly keen on that. And like I say, I have recollections of it being on national news. And so I was kind of curious to actually ask in this, well, it may be an episode of Sir, who remembers that? Any UK viewers remember that? Or indeed, do any viewers more widely outside of the UK? Does anyone remember that game? I actually Googled it before recording because I wanted to see, was it only ever on PlayStation or has it ever been ported since then? Sadly, it doesn't look like it has, which is kind of unfortunate because looking at sort of screenshots of it, obviously, you know, the graphics are old by today's standards, they're a bit dated. But having said that, I don't know, it looks like it would have been probably kind of a fun game to play. And the thing is, as I understand it, I believe that controversy probably generated more interest in the game as a result. So yeah, it's a shame though that it doesn't appear to have been available on any other platform, or that it doesn't appear to have been ported to PC or anything. So that's unfortunate. But I was also then thinking about other games that I sort of remember seeing back when I was a teenager when they were about to be released, which I never played, but which I would have loved to be able to play. And so another sort of example was a first-person shooter called, what was it called? Turning Point: Fall of Liberty, which I believe was like a sort of FPS, again, alternate history, set in the US in the 1950s, I think, depicting a Nazi invasion of the US after the Second World War plays out differently. And from what I understand, I think critical reviews of it at the time were kind of middling, but hey, it's a game that, you know, would have liked to play. But again, it's one of those ones which I've sort of googled it and I don't think it's available anywhere unless you get it second-hand, a second-hand physical copy, that is. But I'm sure people in the comments, I don't know, I'm sure there's someone out there watching who's probably played either of those games, Resistance or Turning Point, who can probably give me an idea of, was it any good? Did they enjoy it? You never know. Yeah, but what it also just kind of got me thinking about was something else which I think I have talked about here in my So You're Being Hunted series before. Have I mentioned before how when I was a teenager I sometimes used to get copies of PC Gamer magazine back in the day? I probably have, right? I must have done. I feel like I have. But if you were to ask me what episode I talked about them in, I probably couldn't say off the top of my head. But no, PC Gamer magazine, I was actually, not too long ago, I was actually looking on eBay to see if you could get sort of second-hand copies of it, and sure enough you can. I'm pretty sure I did see listings for second-hand copies of a couple of the issues that I do remember having as a teenager. And I'll be honest with you, there's a part of me that is tempted to go and see if those listings are still there, and if they are, maybe buy them. Buy a couple of old copies of PC Gamer Mag. Well, at least buy the copies maybe that I remember owning. Maybe even buy a few others. But what would be really awesome is if I could get some copies that actually come with old demo discs. Because that's the thing, a lot of PC Gamer Magazine copies, I remember back in the day, obviously came with demo discs. Because that was the way, you used to get demos quite often in sort of the late 90s, early 2000s. And that'd be awesome, I think, because, if I got my hands on some demo discs, we could always, well, I could always rather, see if maybe I could get them working. We could have sort of like a couple of bonus videos or something here on the channel. Red looks at old games on old demo discs and sees what he can find. And then, on top of that, even if that doesn't work, I could still even just do bonus content looking at the magazines themselves. Just get my phone out, get the camera, record some shots of some of the pages, see what kind of games were basically in development at that time, and we could then even sort of look for them on Google and see if are they available now on places like GOG, or are they the sort of games that have just sort of faded into the mists of time and you can't get them anywhere else except if you were to buy a second-hand copy on eBay or somewhere. God, that would be fascinating, wouldn't it? I'm really tempted to do that, because the thing is, I still have sort of fragmented memories from my teenage years of images from those PC Gamer magazines, sort of like images of games, but I can't remember what the names of those games were, so it'd be fascinating to go back and have a look at them. And partly also this idea is sort of motivated by, remember that Cad Icarus video I once talked about? The one that was about the PlayStation magazine back in the sort of early 2000s and the absolute friggin', the absolute mess that went through. And that's, again, it's sort of nostalgia a bit, but that's one of the reasons, because it kind of motivates me. Because obviously for Cad Icarus it was PlayStation magazine, whereas for me it was PC Gamer mag. But, I think it'll be something very interesting to do. And the more I think about it, the more I am tempted to do it. Because like I say, I can definitely picture in my head at least sort of 2 copies of PC Gamer magazine that I did own back in the day. I can still sort of picture the front covers of them. But I just need to maybe think about picking up some other ones. And ideally, like I say, if I could, I'd want to get second-hand copies that maybe still have the demo discs, if those are still available. It does make me think, though, because obviously I don't have the copies that I had anymore, nor the demo discs that came with them, which really was probably a stupid thing of me to do, because I must have got rid of them. And that was probably stupid of me to do that. Because the thing is, I imagine if I still owned them, along with the demo discs, if I put those up on eBay now, I wouldn't be surprised if they went for a decent price or whatever. Who knows? Then again, actually, probably if I looked at the listings of ones that are available on eBay, I don't know, probably they don't cost very much, in which case I'm probably completely wrong. But who knows? It's worth thinking about. You never know. But yeah, apart from obviously game advertisements in those old magazines, it'd probably also be interesting to see what else they had in them. Because I imagine they probably didn't just have reviews of upcoming games or previews and things like that. They probably also had other content as well. Probably things like discussion articles and other bits and pieces. And actually, speaking of that Cad Icarus video about PlayStation Magazine, if you haven't seen that video, go and watch it, because it is freaking hilarious and also slightly disturbing. Because the thing about the PlayStation Magazine, again, I'm sort of repeating myself after that episode where I talked about this, but just to reiterate, PlayStation Magazine, apparently in the sort of early 2000s, went through a period where kind of the overall quality of it very much nosedived, because it kind of became sort of like a lads mag, where it became almost like a softcore pornography magazine. I'd be kind of curious to see if PC Gamer magazine might have gone through something similar, because I seem to have recollections that one of the copies I had of PC Gamer magazine, I think it did have an article about sort of sexualized depictions in PC games, but I can't recall. I think I do. Well, I think I do recall maybe 1 or 2 things like adverts and things like that, which maybe by today's standards would be seen as a bit sort of objectifying, to put it that way. But I don't recall huge amounts of stuff like that in them. So I'd be sort of curious to actually do a bit of a comparison between the PlayStation Magazine depicted in Kadikarus's video, and then PC Gamer Magazine of roughly the same time, to see, did PC Gamer Magazine also kind of go down a route of trying to appeal to lads with friggin' basically, boobs and softcore nudity and whatever else have you. I'd be curious, basically, is what I'm saying. I'd be curious to know, did they fall into that same pit, to put it that way, or did they sort of generally stay out of it and concentrate on video games, as, you would expect a video game related magazine to actually do? I don't know. It's an interesting thought. So, yeah, oh god, you know what? Fuck it. After this recording session, I'm just going to go on eBay. I'm going to have a look again and see how much some of those old magazine copies are going for. And if they're not too expensive, then I might well take the plunge and see if I can get a couple of old copies. Because at the very least, I think it would make for some interesting bonus content. Because the thing is, I've talked before in the past about how I would like to maybe, sometimes do a bit more sort of more discussion-based content on the channel, apart from obviously video game Let's Plays and things like that. And, that, because obviously I've done various Danganronpa content over the years, like including discussion-based content, and I'd love to go back and do more of that. But I'd also love to see if, if I can think about doing other stuff as well. That's, not necessarily Danganronpa related, though I do want to do more of that. And, doing some PC Gamer Magazine stuff would probably be really, really cool, wouldn't it? Probably be really fun, to put it that way. So that's an idea for the future, potentially. In that case, you know what, I'm just going to wrap this episode up here, ladies and gentlemen, because I've talked really about what I wanted to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about possible ideas. Knowing me, though, and how busy my work sometimes is, I'll say, I've got these plans and it'll take me frigging ages to deliver on them. But, if at all. Because the thing is, I always said I was going to do, for example, a discussion-based video about the lore of the Silvio games, and I haven't really ever got around to doing that. But that, admittedly, though, I have an excuse for that, because apart from work just being too busy, I also decided to kind of put that plan on hold because of the fact that there is a Silvio 3 in the works. So I kind of like to see that game before maybe doing something like that. But, it's an idea, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not off the table, to put it that way. Alright, enough rambling from me. Facebook and Twitter links are down below, along with the link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested. And if you enjoyed, a like is of course always appreciated. But other than that, I'm signing off now. Goodbye, everybody. Foregoing distribution tanks. Hello? What? What's in here? Oh, this is... Oh! What? What? I was just going to say, this room looks like it's full of nope, and it is full of nope. What? I can hear something. What? Oh! What's that? What is that? What was that? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Oh! Oh my god, what is that? What is that? What is that? What is that? No, run, 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 you fucking... Mandus!